Welcome back, Midnight Viewers, to Father Malone's Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Father Malone, and with me, the anaconda to my ice cube, Miss Ripley Jean. How are you, young pup? What a great Harrison Ford impression. Well, here we are, 2 roundups in less than a week. What the hell happened? Was the week so full of pop culture? Hell no. But I've made an executive decision around these midnight viewing parts and decided to upend the schedule we've had for a year or two now. Weekly Roundup has started your week with an anthology or a fest to end it, and now that's reversed. Uno and otherwise. Skip-Bo is the superior card game, by the way. So hello and welcome to the New World Order. No, the other one. Hey, I finished Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Still a terrible title, but I fucking loved the game. Even though it has way too many go left, go right, now duck, now jump moments. And the fucking cutscenes go on forever, and you can't skip them. This isn't me being impatient. Play the game and you'll see exactly what I mean. It got to the point where I'd just drop the controller and go get a snack, see what Ripley's up to, and then come back and continue to snipe Nazis from atop ancient dig sites. In an earlier episode, I mentioned the voice actor they have replicating Harrison Ford. Well, his name is Troy Baker. I love voice actors. Take someone who's considered a workhorse of a regular actor, Michael Caine. Dennis Miller, back when he was funny, had a joke about rewatching his wedding video, and damn if Michael Caine isn't in it. In the flick PCU, there's a character trying to prove that at any one time there was always either a Gene Hackman film or a Michael Caine film being aired. And as much as that man has worked, he's logged in about 175 roles. That's TV and movies. Troy Baker has 428. I'm sure it'll be 500 by the time this airs. It's almost exclusively video games, but a pretty fair amount of your favorite animation from the past 20-odd years. I didn't recognize him as the voice of Conan from the Age of Conan game I've been playing, but that's 2 in a row I've played with this dude subbing in for the leads. First the Sumerian, and now Indiana. His Harrison Ford is uncanny, but there are moments, they come one every cutscene, where Indy will go from a normal speaking voice to just above a whisper. Think of the difference between a map room, a special map room, versus lightning, fire, power of God, or something. When Troy Baker switches tones, he becomes Patrick Warburton, Putty from Seinfeld. Ask the 8-ball. All signs point to yes. It made the cutscenes almost bearable. Did you happen to see the trailer for Spider-Man Brand New Day? Me neither, because it doesn't exist yet. Not that that makes a fucking difference on YouTube. Type it in, you'll see a dozen, stretching back months and months. I could see practicing your editing skills by piecing together a trailer for a film that never was or potentially never will be, as an experiment, that maybe you show as proof that you can do what you do, but there are whole channels that do just that, and they get insane amounts of engagement. There is one category of these fake trailers that I do admire, however. The ones that are so bent on convincing you that they're real that they make it look like it was footage filmed secretly at some fan event or investor screening, complete with audience whooping and shaky as fuck framing. I salute your dedication to total insanity. What else is going on, gang? Oh, I finally got around to reading Cosmic Ghost Rider. That motherfucker has always eluded me. Probably because he didn't hit the scene until 2018. I've clearly been lax when it comes to Zarathos. That is the demon inside Ghost Rider, y'all. I'd done my time with Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch and Robbie Reyes. Somehow I couldn't bear another iteration, but fucking A, what an iteration. So far I've only made my way through his appearances in Thanos. Thanos has his own title, and why not? He's the Mad Titan with some really good ideas. This is an alternate timeline where Thanos has conquered the universe. And dig this, when Thanos came to Earth and slaughtered everyone, the last to fall was Frank Castle, the Punisher. And as he lay dying, he says he'd give anything to punish Thanos, and out pops Mephisto, and a deal is struck, and we got a new Ghost Rider. But by the time Frank gets back from hell, Thanos is already gone, and now Ghost Rider just wanders the Earth for decades. Until Galactus shows up and makes a deal with Frank. If he's allowed to eat Earth, then he'll help him find Thanos. So not only is it the Punisher as Ghost Rider, but now he's got the power cosmic, and he's out silver surfing with a fucking motorcycle. Oh, and he's insane. Completely. Lost his mind wandering lonely for all those years. I won't spoil any more. You know you can read it right now on the Internet Database? I'll throw a link in the show notes. As always, check the show notes for goodies. And if you want to contact me, you can do it there too. Or follow Midnight Viewing on Insta or the other socials. Cosmic Ghost Rider has its own title now that I'm going to have to dive into. And I have a new Halloween costume aspiration. On last week's Roundup, I mentioned that I was going to watch the Oscars this year because for the first time ever, a vampire movie was nominated for Best Picture. I mean, honestly, how many horror movies, never mind monster-specific, have ever been nominated? 9. In 98 years. And 1 win. I totally agree that the Academy has always been hashtag Oscars so white. They've also been hashtag Oscars not red enough. Where's the bloodshed? The win was Silence of the Lambs, which isn't exactly The Exorcist or Sixth Sense as far as supernatural connections, which I find a necessary component for pure horror. We at least need beasts, like Jaws, also nominated, also didn't win. But I bring it back up here because what I failed to mention was that this is not only the first vampire film nominated, it's the first Frankenstein film as well. It's a fucking monster rally. Can we get a thoughtful, horrifying mummy out now, please? Actually, I think one might be on the way. Maybe a new creature from the Black Lagoon. Make it at A24. The lagoon is the explorer's grief where they find themselves trapped. And while frightening, the creature is actually an agent of healing, making them fight their way out of the wilderness and back to the civilization that is fine and dandy mental health. Since we're in a Frankenstein neighborhood, did you hear that Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell have signed to do a feature called Kenan and Kel Meet Frankenstein? Let it be good. I have total faith in them as performers, but please be at least as funny as Abbott and Costello when they met the monster themselves. That was a flick we covered in one of the first roundups. Go check that out. That is all the info we've got about that cinematic monster farce, but trust me, I will keep you informed. You know, I love when movie terms or phrases work their way into everyday usage, like cut to the chase, or that's a wrap. You know what one I hate? Meet cute. If someone uses it now, it seems to mean a blanket statement about the moment that eventual lovers meet, which is totally incorrect. Meet cute got into the vernacular thanks to the Kate Winslet-Cameron Diaz flick The Holiday by Nancy Meyer. Kate Winslet befriends Eli Wallach, who's a screenwriter from the Billy Wilder days. In fact, he's kind of based on Billy Wilder, to the point that his character introduces her to the concept of the meet cute by using a quote that Billy Wilder had given back in 1996. In that interview and in the film, he references Bluebeard's Eighth Wife, Ernst Lubitsch's screwball comedy from 1938, in which two characters meet while shopping for pajamas. One is seeking a pajama top, and the other a pajama bottom. They meet in a cute manner. Hey, Joe, this is my cousin Lisa. Nice to meet you, Lisa. That's not a meet cute. That's a meeting. This next one isn't a movie term, but it's one I really enjoy. The law of diminishing returns. I'm sure you're familiar with the phrase, where the product output remains the same, but the productivity and efficiency decrease. The longer you add product only, the more watered down the results. Like the Hellraiser films. Those are 11 movies. We seem to get one every 4 years, and every 4 years, everyone's attention and patience with the series waned just that much harder. Why am I talking about film phrases and economic theories? Because I had both on the brain while watching the latest in the Silent Hill film franchise, Return to Silent Hill.
James, so much time has passed. Something's happened. Please come back to our place. Love, Mary.
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
You're not from here, are you?
I'm looking for someone.
Everyone got sick in Silent Hill. You really never heard about any of this?
James.
We have to get to her before it's too late.
You did it, didn't you, Jimmy? You woke him up.
All that darkness, you can't give it away.
Where is she?
No one said it would be easy.
What you're doing, it won't be enough to save her. You don't know what kind of hell you have to face.
Mary. They keep telling me to move on. No matter what it takes, I won't let go.
I mentioned over on TrekFest that I had a buddy make a film back in the 90s. That was at Lionsgate. So I ended up spending a lot of time during post-production hanging around with a couple of executive types. At the time, I think Son-in-Law had just come out, or maybe this was In the Army Now. I'm naming Pauly Shore movies. He'd already been on MTV for years, so he had recognition, but I couldn't imagine he had an audience big enough to justify a series of films. The executive I was asking about it told me this: that's what the movie industry is, from Universal down to Troma. It's all the law of averages. In the Army Now or Son-in-Law aren't going to do Beverly Hills Cop money, but no one's shooting for Blockbuster. They're putting up a $3 or $4 million budget and pulling in between 20 and 30 million. Why not put a Pauly Shore movie out every year? Because eventually you make Jury Duty with a budget of $21 million and a $17 million return. Notice there's only one flick after that, Biodome, and that was already in production before Jury Duty was released. And thus Silent Hill. Not wildly profitable, but enough. Enough to keep the business model going. Each successive film made with a lower budget and pulling in lower box office, but always commensurate with each other. These movies make about double their budget theatrically, and then home video and streaming and syndication rights are all gravy. That might end here, with a budget of $23 million and a gross so far of $3. I brought up Meet Cute because that's how this film begins, only it's more of a Meet Hideous, or a Meet Idiotic, really. Forgive the opening scene play-by-play, but it's important. Our hero, James Sunderland, played by Jeremy Irvine, he's the kind to drive his Mustang at super unsafe speeds through winding roads of a mountainous pass while rocking out to some tunes and lighting up a joint. And then nearly kill a pedestrian when he overcorrects from a head-on collision he almost caused through carelessness. I'm not really loving our lead here, but hey, maybe that's the point. He misses Mary Crane, played by Hannah Emily Anderson, but clips a piece of her luggage, sending her belongings raining down all over the highway. Because her luggage wasn't on the sidewalk where the bus stop is located. No, it's out in the street. It gets better. They gather her clothing, her bus arrives, she jumps in front of the bus to make it stop, as if it's leaving and not arriving. And then he drops a piece of luggage, some more clothing spills out. She looks at the easily scooped up clothing, and then looks at the bus driver and shrugs and waves him on, as if it won't be possible to get it together before the bus that has just stopped has to get back on the road. And it does, stranding her with him. Aren't they meeting cute? No. This is fucking stupid on every level. And it's the opening. I hate our lead, our co-lead is clearly an imbecile, and now let's follow them through the rest of the movie. Recently, I heard someone describe the best horror movies, the really memorable, stood-the-test-of-time fright flicks, work as well as they do because if you were to remove the horror element, you'd still be interested in the story being told. The characters are strong and relatable, or they can be terrible and unapproachable, but it's gotta be more than the same bullshit we've been getting for 100 years of cinema while we wait for the fun to begin. So does it? It does, in much the same manner it did in Silent Hill back in 2006. That film was directed by Christophe Gans, an auteur I noticed in '93. He directed a segment of a Lovecraft horror anthology called Necronomicon Book of the Dead, starring Jeff Combs as Lovecraft. He directed the first segment, The Drowned, and I remember at the time thinking, holy fuck, what kind of a budget did this movie have? And then, as the rest of the stories unfolded, I thought, man, they must have spent the entire budget on that first segment. Nope, that was just Gans showing off what a fucking phenomenal visual stylist he is. He makes pictures as pretty as Zack Snyder or Michael Bay. I know they suck, but they make gorgeous films, and you can't deny that they have an absolute mastery of every technical detail of filming, and they know where to put the fucking camera. That mastery was fully on display in 2001 when Gans made Brotherhood of the Wolf, a horror fantasy martial arts period piece set against the legend of the Beast of Gévaudan. I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but I'm also not going to try. And that was a region of France where, from 1764 until 1767, there were roughly 200 attacks by wolves, resulting in between 60 to 100 deaths. They sent in packs of dogs, they sent in the royal guard, they sent in dragoons. Nothing worked. Finally, a father-son hunting duo took down the alpha wolf, with its mate and pups eventually subdued as well. Gans turned that into a fable about a French warrior and his Iroquois sidekick as they hunt down a creature that's been weaponized by a secret society. It's a cuckoo crazy direction to take what is essentially The Ghost and the Darkness. Remember that killer lion flick with Val Kilmer and Michael Douglas? Oof. Gans seemed the perfect choice to helm the initial Silent Hill, particularly because he'd been lobbying Konami since the game's release to do just that. He initially wanted to adapt Silent Hill 2 as the first feature, but was dissuaded because of how personalized the second game's gameplay was. The first film gave a broader story with a fairly easy-to-follow origin for the town and its resolution. There's a cult and a ritual that resulted in a character bisecting and becoming a dark and light version of themselves, and thus Silent Hill becomes bisected, two towns existing at the same time in the same space. Gee, I wonder if the Duffer Brothers ever played these games, or saw these movies. The second game posited a Silent Hill as the manifestation of each individual character's guilt or sadness or longing. One character's Silent Hill is not necessarily the same for another. Kind of hard to lock down an overall mythology when it's different every which way you turn, so instead they adapted the first game. I don't know what your mileage is on that first film. I liked it overall. When it becomes Dark Silent Hill, it was like a Francis Bacon painting coming to life, and there are genuine moments of dread. That army of smoldering mutant children chasing her down. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. And it has Alice Kriege. Alice Kriege. Tune into our Trekfest First Contact episode. That'll be on the Patreon by the time you hear this. I fucking love Alice Kriege. I say that a lot on the Roundup. I love her, or I love her, or I love her. But Alice Kriege is the perfect example, the platonic ideal of sexy scary. She's weird and aloof while simultaneously earthy and sensual. And she's beautiful. And she's fucking frightening, man. Go check out Ghost Story, a not very good movie with an excellent, chilling, early Alice Kriege performance. On the flip side, Silent Hill is fronted by Radha Mitchell, who was an it girl for 10 minutes in the early 2000s before everyone realized she's a chunk of lead emotionally and is wildly unappealing as a lead. Did everyone realize that? Maybe that's wishful thinking on my part. I can't stand her. Should have cast anyone else. Maybe they could have given the lead to Sean Bean, who plays her husband. And had they adapted the game directly, that would have been the case. That game follows a character named Harry Mason as he tries to find his missing daughter in Silent Hill. They not only gender swapped, they made her a new character entirely. I have no problem with dispensing with a character or modifying them when they make the leap from one medium to another. I actually think it's a solid idea when it comes to gaming crossovers because it allows a level of remove for the gamer while changing nothing in the minds of a moviegoer who's never even held a controller. Gans mentioned that as one of the reasons for the change, but then he went further. He gave an interview at the time of filming where he said this about he and his fellow writers, one of whom is Roger Avery, co-writer of Pulp Fiction and writer-director of Killing Zoe and Rules of Attraction. I'm not saying this to call out Roger Avery, I'm just saying that he was involved in this film, but I think all of his contributions were positive. Anyway, here's Gans. Quote, "We assumed, because we are fans of the game, that we would start writing with Harry Mason as our lead. It quickly became clear, however, Harry never acted like a masculine character. He was constantly dizzy, fainting, talking to himself, screaming, and in fact, was very vulnerable. We didn't want to betray the nature of the game by changing the character's feelings and motivations, so we felt it was better to change to a female protagonist and retain all of those important qualities." Dizzy, fainting, and vulnerable. That's you, ladies! It's a super weird sentiment considering the look of Silent Hill, the breathtaking, horrifying, stomach-churning world that is the reason the movie works at all, was created by production designer Carol Spire. She's also Cronenberg's designer. I liked how feminine that first film was. They in fact had to add the Sean Bean character last minute because executives complained the movie was all female. The hero is a woman, the villain is a woman. Pyramid Head is just a manifestation of the missing daughter, so Alice Kriege is the one actually pulling the strings here, making the script itself at odds with Gans' 20th century notions on the traits of the femme. Gans stepped away from the series, so Silent Hill Revelations, in 3D, with Sensurround and boredom bafflers, was directed by Michael J. Bassett. Although she goes by MJ Bassett these days, she continues to be a prolific TV director, but before this film, she made Solomon Kane, which I reviewed here on the Roundup. I like that movie. She also put out that Red Sonja flick last year, which I gave as much time to discussing as I will Silent Hill Revelations. In fairness, she had a tough row to hoe by trying to make a direct sequel to the first film, while simultaneously trying to make Silent Hill 3. It's unwieldy and contradictory, and just not as freaky as the first. But as far as diminishing returns go, it's not such a precipitous drop that I wouldn't recommend it. The first film's visuals were able to carry it home, same here. That was in 2012. 13 years later, well 14 actually, it's 2026 now, and suddenly Gans' initial dream has come true. He's back in the writer-director chair, no Avery this time, he's got podcasting to do, and he's adapting Silent Hill 2, which is how that game's protagonist ends up meeting cute with Mary Crane in the opening of Return to Silent Hill. Has there ever been and I just answered it in my head, it's Return of the Jedi. I was going to say, has there ever been a sequel that starts with Return of that's any good? I might be thinking of TV movies. Return of a Man Called Horse, Return of Ironside, Return from the River Kwai. That's a real thing. Anyway, that meet-cute ends up being a dream that James Sunderland is having while drunk in a bar. In Boston is what I'm guessing from his car's license plate. And I thought, oh, thank God, it was just some reverie. James comes to in a fairly gritty version of the world and a fairly gritty version of himself, although no amount of grit can cover up the pretty boy model looks of our lead. He's half Jared Padalecki, half Casper Van Dien, although he's way more charismatic than Johnny Rico and way less so than Sam Winchester. But no, that wasn't a dream, it was a flashback. All that mediocrity actually occurred. If you've played Silent Hill 2, then you've seen this movie. You, in fact, experienced it as the character, feeling the fear as you navigate through the fog and avoid the creepers. So you're way ahead of the average moviegoer here. Because with only a few deviations in plot, this is that game. Except it's rather maddening, and not in a good, this foul place is warping my perception way. He meets several characters during the course of the film, and just like the game, they all act like NPCs just breadcrumbing him along. Anyone on Earth who'd been away from a place for a few years and returned to find its roadways blocked off, and then the town itself abandoned, and under a constant coat of constantly floating ash, wouldn't be so cavalier to continue blindly fumbling around a town and not press a resident for every bit of information you could. This is a 90-minute film. We better get going with the storytelling about Silent Hill, except we spend an even greater amount of time in those flashbacks to when the town was fine. You know, where the cliched, boring story lives, all the while delivering head-slapping contradictions. James suggests to Mary that he moved to Silent Hill to be with her, and she tells him no, he'd be bored. There are no museums, no culture. And in the next scene, in Silent Hill, he meets a group of her friends at a chic nightclub filled with the types of posers who lurk in the pages of Bret Easton Ellis novels. I was convinced for half of the film that one of them was Tilda Swinton. She's not. I'm sorry, Tilda. But I had to try and convince myself there was something good going on here. By way of example, let's take a trip to toxicology. Fans of the game know that if you're in the hospital, the toxicology wing is something to avoid. The nurses lurk there. If there's a character as iconic as Pyramid Head, Red Pyramid is his name in the film, they call him Triangle Head in Japan, it's the nurses. You've seen them. 2 tight, grubby uniforms, faces just a swirl of flesh, bone white and frozen in place. Unless you make a noise, or shine a light on them. Those things attract them. And they'll stab and slice until the sound is gone and the light is dead. I love the nurses. I think they're the coolest thing to come out of the game. I'm sure there have been haunted attractions based on Silent Hill, but I have not had the opportunity to go, and I'm glad, honestly. I know if I ended up in a room full of those nurses, I would come immediately. Each film gives us one scene with the nurses. In the first, Rose runs into them about 3/4 of the way through the film, and there are dozens of them, all blocking further progress down a hallway. Her flashlight brings them to life and staggering toward her, swinging their scalpels wildly. What follows is a tense, genuinely frightening sequence where she tries not to make a noise. It's a scene worthy of any of those Mission Impossible flicks. In the second film, young Jon Snow Kit Harington is strapped to a gurney and wheeled into an OR that doubles as a nurse statuary. Far less of them here, but the stakes are the same. Trying to get yourself unshackled while making no noise is remarkably difficult, and the scene starts pretty promising. But then it's over before it began. Still, good enough. There was no guarantee that they'd even be in this film. I avoided advertising like the plague, and I'm glad I did. I might have waited till video and not spent my actual money. So when our boy James and Angela or Mary or Maria or Alyssa or whatever burst into the room, and there they are, you can imagine I was pretty fucking excited. And now the architect of that first film has 20 years of film experience. This is going to be fucking great. And it starts that way. There are more nurses than you can count in here. And behind them, there seems to be another room filled with them. And when they first enter, their flashlight falls on one that's slumped across a metal gurney. She doesn't rise. She starts banging a hammer on the gurney. And that's a drum beat that keeps these ladies moving regardless of what the victims are doing. But then, almost immediately, it ended up turning into what most horror characters do after they've been absorbed and regurgitated by the mainstream. It becomes an action film. That's what we have, running down hallways as hundreds of nurses, an entire hospital of nurses, come flooding down the hall. I say flooding, but they're in high heels, so they're actually hobbling along. It's all very inelegant and not at all tense. And in the end, it's Sunderland swinging a pipe and breaking their skulls open like porcelain dolls, like so many faceless James Bond henchmen, as he waits for an elevator door to close. Not scary, not sexy, not frightening, just kinda there, like the rest of the flick. I mentioned how closely this film hews to the video game, and boy does it, including our lead constantly becoming paralyzed with fright, or cowering from creatures instead of running away or killing them. He also does quite a bit of head and hands writhing on the ground and screaming. Why'd you have to make him so feminine, Christoph? And why did I have to watch this? So you don't have to, but I'm sure you will when it's streaming. And you can see it for free, but trust me, you're still going to feel ripped off. Dust off your copies of the PlayStation game. They even remade Part 2 a couple of years ago. You will be far better served. And if you have to watch a movie version, rewatch the original. I did after watching this, and now I'm a big admirer of the film, whereas before I thought it was a bit half-baked. This week I had intended to review that new Anaconda movie with Jack Black and Paul Rudd. I saw it, but this Silent Hill diatribe got a bit out of hand, so maybe next week. If not, it's terrible. Worse than Return to Silent Hill. Tune in this coming Monday. Mike White is back to talk Hammer House of Horror with me. We're taking on The House That Bled to Death, perhaps the most infamous episode of the series. You can hear that right now and the next 2 episodes of Hammer House on the Patreon channel. Not only do you get stuff early there, but you get exclusives, like our continuing Moranis Fest, where HP and I are going through the filmography of Mr. Rick Moranis in anticipation of the upcoming Spaceballs movie. That is also where you can hear my collaboration with Paul Waller from A Year in Horror podcast. We do a show called A Little Old Lady Got Mutilated Late Last Night. It's about werewolves. So far, you can hear us jabber about the Wolfman and Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman and Curse of the Werewolf with Oliver Reed. We've got The Howling there, and most recently, we've recorded an American Werewolf in London. I think we're doing Silver Bullet next. I'm a little too old to be playing Hardy Boys. Meet Reverend Werewolf! Gary Busey in his last cogent performance. And patrons get to force me to watch something. So far, we've done Night on Earth. We just recorded Labyrinth. We've got a few more in the works. Shout out to Jason Jeffers on the Patreon. What do you want to see, Jason? Let me know. FatherMalone71@gmail.com. That's where you can all reach me. For Ripley Jean, I'm Father Malone. Try to enjoy the daylight, everybody. Sincerely.